AQUABIZ, all the best knowledge for aquatic system.
Good morning. Thank you for your attendance today. And I would like to thank UNICEF for providing me this opportunity to share with you the story of Pangasius production and also Pangasius broodstock management. And my talk includes 4 parts. First, I would like to introduce a little bit about the Pangasius production and farming. Then I will talk about genetic factors that affect broodstock and then affect the fingerling quality and quantity. I mentioned also the genetic improvements program of these species, and also the last part is about the broodstock management strategies for fecundity species, especially Pangasius. I know that many of you interested in tilapia and just few interested in Pangasius, but I would like to share this story. Maybe you have some more information and maybe in the future you can work on that species. First, talk about the Pangasius production in general. In the world, Pangasius production, especially striped catfish, and here in Thailand, you know, maybe you call Sachi catfish and other Thai's name. It was in 2020. It's last as the 8th aquaculture species, and production is about 2.5 million tons. In which Vietnam contributes up to 64%. And besides Vietnam, Thailand and some other countries, Southeast Asia countries, also the main producer of Pangasius. I'm very surprised that I have visited two hatcheries yesterday, but most of hatcheries work on tilapia, not much on Pangasius here. Which species have been cultured in aquaculture in terms of we call Pangasius, but actually it includes several species. Here in Vietnam, we culture this main species. So you call Sachi catfish, or this is I look for from the internet. It's a Thai name. Okay, and another species in the past, more than 20 years ago, we cultured this species in cage. And nowadays, it's in also cage culture, but the production is not much, just for the local consumption. And here in Vietnam, we also culture Concophilus. You have this species in Thailand too? Okay. In Indonesia, I have found that this species look like bokunti, and this is also the main species for aquaculture in Indonesia. In Thailand, I have found that some hatcheries culture we call giant Mekong catfish. This is the endangered species in the world, but you have been successfully in producing in captivity, in artificially production of this species. And let me talk a little bit about the production of striped catfish. As I mentioned earlier, 2.5 million tons in the world, and you can see here in Vietnam, the production is about 1.2 to 1.6 million tons per year. And it started from 2000 for the commercial production, and it's get a high production from since 2008. The value, in terms of the value, you can see here in the map because of the COVID pandemic, so the price, in the term of the value is decreased. And where we culture catfish, this species in Vietnam, here I show you, the map here, Vietnam, and this is our, we call Mekong Delta. Most of you already been there, right? Here you can see the darker color, that means the higher production or the main culture area, and also the main area for producing larvae, broodstock here. This is we call Dong Thap and An Giang province. And you can see this is a Mekong River. The Mekong River started from upstream here up to Vietnam. It's divided into two tributaries. We call Hậu and Tiền River. And most of catfish farms are located along these rivers. And this is a pond, the striped catfish ponds. In general, the area of the pond is around 0.4 to 1 hectare. That is the common practice in Vietnam, in the Mekong Delta. And it may surprise you that the depth of the pond is very depth. It's 3.5 to 4.5 meters, so that we can increase the density, increase the production per cubic meter. And how about the production? Production based on the survey is in 2008, but the number here is still applicable up to now. Based on the survey, there are 3 groups of range on production. The first one is right here. Some farms have very low production because of diseases. And most of the farms have the production around 200 to 500 tons per hectare. And the other farms have very high, but unusually high production, just because they cannot sell their fish at that time, at the harvest times. They had to retain the fish for longer because of the low price, and they wait for the higher one. So that is unusual one. So this is still applicable nowadays. So in average, we estimate about 400 tons per hectare. This is a common one. I mentioned a little bit about the sectors involved in striped catfish value chains in the Mekong Delta. And here you see that broodstock hatcheries produce broodstocks mainly in ponds. Before 25 years ago, we cultured larvae from the rivers, but we had successful on producing broodstock in pond. They can mature within 2 or 3 years, usually in 3 years. And you see here, especially this number, 94% of larvae produced from the hatcheries shown to the nursery setters. They don't nurse themselves, but they sell to the nursery setter. And then some farmers nurse for 2 stays or 1 stage before they sell to the roll-out farmers. So, because most of the larvae produced from hatcheries sold to the roll-out setter or through the nursery setter, so the farmers, the roll-out farmers, mainly don't know the quality of their fingerling. Yes. And that's also the problem when we talk about the broodstock. And I also mentioned that a small portion of hatcheries, they produce the fingerling for themselves. They have the closed system, they have the hatchery and nurturing fawn, and then they produce the fingerling for their grow-out farms. So just a few big companies in Vietnam. Now I talk about the genetics factors. So the main ideas is very much similar to the points that Dr. Ubaida already mentioned for tilapia. I just remind you that the two main factors that affect the broodstock quality and then to the fingerling quality and quantity. That is genetic drift and inbreeding. And these two factors have the similar consequence that lead to the reduce of genetic diversity, or you can say that reduce the genetic quality of the seed. In terms of performance that we can see in our fish, that is show low performance in terms of slow growth or high mortality, or more susceptible to diseases or more vulnerable to the environmental change. So just give another example, another view to see how it affects of genetic drift. So here is your big population. Assume that in the original population, you have 5 colors representing for 5 good genes, for example. And because you have large population here, but you don't produce all for the next broodstock generation. Again, like Dr. Zubaida already mentioned, we are talking about the broodstock next generation. Okay, we don't produce all, we take a subset of them and assume that this subset just includes 3 colors. So in next generation, even you produce millions of larvae, but it's just from the 3 colors here. So that means you lost 2 colors, 2 genes, 2 maybe the rare and very good genes. So that is a consequence of genetic drift, leads to the loss of genetic diversity. And the main point that Dr. Zubaida already mentioned, that the smaller of the population, the quicker of the loss, and the faster of the loss and unpredictable. Like, for example, like here, like you have a small groups of broodstock, and for each time of spawning to produce the next generation, like you take the 4 bones from the 20, so just a few times, so that means just a few generations, you just get 1 color. That means you lost the other one, you lost genes. Okay, so this is should take into account when you establish a new hatchery or you produce the next broodstock generation for your farms. And now another factor, that is about genetic drift. Now about the genetic inbreeding. Again, the ideas is very much the same for all species. So when inbreeding occurs, in certain levels, it will cause problems. So let me talk about example of inbreeding. So that is, all of us know that is the mating of related individuals. And here, this is a sample of the 2 scenarios, but one this individual is inbred, but this one is not, even though they have the same EE here. Okay? Individual fish A here is inbred because their parents come from the same couple. Okay? Meanwhile, in this scenario, fish B is not inbred, even they have EE here, but their parents are not related. So it's not the same parents from here. So this one with the other one outside of the pedigree. So B is not inbred. So again, this is inbred in the viral or inbreeding. And I give example like some of your questions about how much the value of inbreeding should be in the hatcheries. So before to give the answer to that question, I give you example of some mating that have the value here. When we measure the level of inbreeding, we call inbreeding coefficient. And as Dr. Zubaida mentioned, it goes from 0 to 1, okay? And for some example of mating pair here, like for example, parents and offspring, mom, son, or dad and daughter, so like that, we get 0.25. And offspring, that means parents come from the same grandparents, so also produce the offspring with 0.25 inbreeding coefficient. And for the cousin mating, the half of this, so 1.1245. So that means 12.5%. Okay, so this is an example that I give you here. So in hatcheries, we don't know the pedigree, but in general, inbreeding coefficient will increase over time, will increase in every generation, and the amount of the increase depends on effective population size, NE, that Dr. Ubeda already mentioned. So for each generation, for every generation, the inbreeding coefficient increase, okay? So for example, here, if NE 10, F should be 5%, 0.05. And when we increase the NEs, F increase slowly, okay? This equation is very important for us in terms of broodstock management. If we can manage NE, we can, and NEs here is inverse proportional with F, so that when we increase NEs, we decrease F, okay? So again, in hatcheries, many small and medium hatcheries can reach to the level of 10%, 0.1, 10%, just after a few generations, especially for species that the farmers can produce by themselves. I don't know, here you have the climbing birch or snakehead, or those species that just any farmers can reproduce by themselves. For those species, they usually just a few generations, the inbreeding coefficient can get to the level of 0.1. Why I mentioned 0.1? Because based on the review that they already survey and look at many species, many countries, many studies, that with 0.1 it can cause inbreeding depression. Okay, and here inbreeding depression does mean it will cause problem in terms of performance of the traits that involved in production. For example, slow growth or slow of survival, or susceptible to diseases, or they have the high FGR, okay, because of metabolism deficiency, or they have abnormalities, deformities, especially for striped catfish. We have observed the fingerling with different types of deformity, no fin, no dorsal fin, no pectoral fin, or they have the deformity in their body like this. And another problem is yellow meat. It's also the problem in terms of striped catfish production. If the fish at harvest have the yellow color in their meat, the price reduced. So, and the higher values of inbreeding coefficient, the more severe of inbreeding depression. So now let's see the situation inbreeding situation of striped catfish in Vietnam and in Thailand. So these I took from the literature. Okay, but first I give you information on the hatcheries and propagation of the fish. So in terms of artificial propagation of striped catfish in Vietnam, we were successful in hatchery condition, in experimental condition from 1978, 87, but we transferred technology to farmers 10 years later, and then you have seen in previous slide that then the production increased, and we can export our products to international markets. In Thailand, it was reported that you success very early. It's around at the end of 1960s, very early compared to us, maybe 20 years earlier than us. But it's very surprised that you had not produced for commercial farm production until 2006. Later, you had some statistics show catfish production from Thailand, but before that, not. I just learned from you yesterday that maybe because of perception, you thought that Pangasius may be the temple fish. Okay, the farming of a fish species very much depend on the perception. And back to the broodstock. So at the beginning, we used broodstock from the Mekong River, so we call Mekong salt. But based on the reports, some hatcheries in Thailand use broodstock from the Chao Phraya River, and some hatcheries later introduced the Mekong salts. And we will see what this information, how it's affected to inbreeding of the broodstock. And when we cannot follow their parents, like the pedigrees, we can estimate the inbreeding level of our broodstock based on genetics markers. And here, this study in Vietnam and Thailand were used microsatellite markers. And I present here the information from one study in Vietnam, but actually Dr. Hùng also studied in Kasasak in Thailand. Here he collected fish samples from the wild in the rivers, 4 locations, and from 3 hatcheries in An Giang and Đồng Tháp, in the main producer of striped catfish. And what is the results? The results show that he wanted to compare the 2 groups of hatcheries and wild fish, and the results show that they both sources of population had the moderate genetic diversity. And at that time, no inbreeding was detected. And here in 2006, he collected samples, and up to these times, it's about 3 generations. And striped catfish and other Pangasius catfish have very high fecundity, and many farmers also have the large number of broodstock. So after 3 generations, no inbreeding occur. That is understandable. How about in Thailand? In Thailand, this study collected a population, also white here from the wild, okay, and the others from the hatcheries. And some, this one had no introduction of Mekong fish, while the other have some introduction. That means take fish broodstock from Mekong salts. And the results show that inbreeding occurs in some hatchery, especially in one hatchery that had been, the broodstock was established 30 years ago at that time, and without any introduction, without broodstock replacement, and it showed the results so that inbreeding get the around 0.1 of the that population. Okay, so the study showed that due to the two regimes of broodstock management, the inbreeding can be affected. And how about nowadays? This is very recent study that collected sample also from the wild and the hatcheries. The same question, whether inbreeding occur in the hatchery. And in this study, three countries were investigated. So in Thailand here, in Cambodia, and in Vietnam. They use other techniques. They use the higher advanced techniques, the next generation sequencing, but we interested in the results. In general, farm fish, I mean fish from the hatcheries, have lower level of diversity compared to the wild fish and have higher inbreeding coefficient. That means the level of inbreeding in hatchery is higher than the wild fish. More importantly, NE here you see is very low compared to the historical estimates. Okay, so this is 1,000, but now it's just a few, 10 to 70, right? So why it's happened? Because for Pangasius, not only striped catfish but other species have very high fecundity, like 1 kilo of fish or one individual of fish can produce millions of eggs. So with that high fecundity, usually when the farmers want to get the certain amount of fingerling, they sometimes just reduce the several individuals. That's enough. I calculate an example. I give you an example. So if I just produce 3 pair of broodstocks, 3 pair of broodstock of striped catfish, I can have enough fingerling to culture for roll-out culture for 5,000 hectare ponds. Okay, so can you imagine that? So with the very small number of broodstock like this, it can reduce it can generate the inbreeding. Yeah. Especially if we don't pay attention when we produce the next broodstock generation. Okay, now I talk just very briefly about the genetics program of striped catfish in Vietnam and also in Thailand. We already focus on growth, improved growth rates, disease resistance to some serious disease in striped catfish, survival, and pelagio. Okay. For the short term, for crossbreeding, for Pangasius catfish, I haven't found any studies talking about reporting about the crossbreeding is different from the case of tilapia. Okay, just unintentional that some hatcheries in Thailand, they use 2 strains, 2 sorts of broodstock, Mekong and Chao-Prai broodstock. And those studies found, those hatcheries were found that their broodstock have high level of genetic diversity. Okay, and the program that we have applied to improve the production of striped catfish is selection, and some apply mass selection, and and most apply family selection. Okay, and the traits that I already mentioned. Okay, and those studies was conducted in our university, CTU Cần Thơ University, in Research Institutes for Aquaculture number 2 in Ho Chi Minh City, and also in Thailand. Here just an example of a long-term projects in Ria 2 in Vietnam. They had conducted a long-term selection program and they use family selection. And this is the report for 15 years. You can pay attention here. So for each generation, the growth rates, the body weights at harvest increased 9.3%. That is very meaningful, very can give a lot of profits from this number in terms of farming. In terms of fish yield, just a very low percentage increase compared for each generation. For the survival, this number may not be reliable because it depends very much on the methods of estimation. So we may be interested in this number. So the improved fish compared to the wild fish, how much the difference? For example, we look at the body weight at harvest, so it's around 1 kg, right? And the selected lines grow faster, okay, and gets more weight. It's about 13.4% difference compared to the wild. Okay. So we also use the family selection for disease resistant. This is a serious disease in Pangasius that can cause the loss of 70% of, can cause 70% mortality in fish farms, in fish ponds. And in general, we found that heritability is low in terms of counting death or survive after challenging. And in terms of survival rate, it's a little bit high, but it's found that genetic correlation between the disease resistance with the body weight. That means that when we just focus on disease resistance, but your fish also grow faster. Yeah, I have to summarize here that for crossbreeding, for Pangasius, it's not applied yet, but this can be a solution to remove the inbreeding and to increase the genetic diversity. For Pangasius catfish, a little bit hard to make crossbreeding because most of the stock is come from the same one. For example, in Vietnam, come from the same origin. You can apply mass selection, but mass selection is simple, promising, but and it can be applied at the hatchery scale, but we need to be careful because just a few generations it can cause a problem in breeding. So, and in the institution like the Ria 2, that they can apply the family selection, and that is a very good approach. And like in tilapia, these are also the best choice in terms of the selection program. Okay, so now the last point I mentioned is the broodstock management strategies of Pangasius, and at the same as tilapia depend very much on your goals of the hatcheries. So you reduce the larvae for nurturing ponds and pod roll out later, or you produce your fish to the next broodstock generation. So if you just produce the seed to shell, sometimes you don't care about any, but you should care about the inbreeding so that you can maintain your reputation, your hatcheries quality. Okay. And if you produce the broodstock for next generation, again, you should pay more attention on both factors, genetic drips and inbreeding. So to minimize inbreeding, as Dr. Yubaida already mentioned, that all strategies that apply for tilapia also apply for other fish to minimize inbreeding. So because of Pangasius is a little bit long-lived than tilapia, and they have the big size, so you can mark them. And you can use different kinds of markers like morphology. Some people, some hatcheries, they can write using the pen to write in the head, but that signal just lasts for 1 or 1.5 years. And some, we can use a physical mark like here, pit tags, and this is have been applied in many hatcheries and in research. Here we also we just inject into the body, the muscle here, and we can use the scanner to scan the number. And it shows the identification number is like your ID. Or we can choose a visible implant in blastomas. In this kind of marking, we just distinguish the groups. We cannot distinguish individuals. In terms of unmarked situation, and this is very common in many hatcheries, that in terms of unmarked, we need to minimize inbreeding based on the number of broodstock that's produced for next generation. Okay, so for example, this already show you that if just we have 5 pairs with the balanced sex ratio, so the inbreeding level can reach 0.05. That means 5% for each generation. Okay, so this is a susceptible level. Okay, so that by also this equation you can estimate the number of broodstock that you use to produce the next generation of broodstock, and based on your goal. Again, if you set your goal that okay, up to 5 generations, you can get the accumulative inbreeding level 5%. That is a little bit safe. So with that goal, you can calculate that, okay, you need about NE about 50. In NE about 50, that means as the calculation that Dr. Obeda already showed you, is about if you use equal sex, that means 25 male and 25 females. And if you unbalanced sex ratio, you need to increase those number. And if my goal is to have after 10 generations, not 5, if I have 10 generations that I guess the same level, 5% of inbreeding coefficient, I need to increase NE up to 100. So that means 50 male and 50 females. But in hatcheries, Pangasius hatcheries in the Mekong Delta, there are some problems. Some big companies, some big hatchery, that's okay. Like here in some big hatchery in Thailand of tilapia, no problem. But in Vietnam, there's a case that when there is a high demand of fingerlings, some small farmers can produce the eggs and to sell the fertilized eggs to other hatcheries. So in that case, the farmer, the roll-out farmer cannot know their quality, and it's very much have low quality. Okay, because just only 3 females can produce millions of fertilized eggs, and it's enough for 5,000 hectares. 5,000 square meters of roll-out ponds. And another problem, and it can be a problem with other species too, that is when we pull the eggs from several females, and we pull the sperms or milk from several males. Okay, so and that is a common practice in Pangasius hatchery. So here, they strip the eggs from several males to put into the one buttocks here. And that's problems when cows reduce NE. So how to account for these techniques, for these practices? We need to increase more the number of broodstock spawning. Okay, and again, we mentioned about the number of broodstock to produce the next broodstock generation. In sum, to get the good production, you need not only focus on any of those here, four cycles here, for main points here, that is nutrition, water management, disease management, and broodstock quality. Nowadays, many hatcheries and farms just focus on those trees. Okay, and in Vietnam, many farms already have very good techniques, good protocol to culture their fish, but let's pay attention on broodstock quality. So if we pay attention at the same time, we manage all of this, it's sure that we will have the good quality of our fingerling, and also at the consequence, at the results, we can have the high production. That's slide also the close of my talk.